Hello, back to a bleeding orange and blue video today. So something new, something different, and we're going over the Beau Horvat trade. So obviously it's a very controversial opinion. I know a lot of Islanders fans don't support it. I got the Pelly jersey on today, number 3. And yeah, I'm here to tell you that I like the Beau Horvat trade, which a lot of people have ranted about. A lot of people are mad about it. To me, I am one of the biggest haters of Lou Lamoriello and his time on the island. I just am. You could look at my podcast, and I am just not really a fan of a lot of his work. Here, I'm a fan. I'm actually a fan. And listen, we knew the price of Bo Horvat. Like people knew it was going to be a young forward, a young D man, and a first round pick. And to be quite frank, considering what that price was looking at, the Islanders kind of got a steal in that regard, even though they give up a lot. So let's just break it down. So Bo Horvat goes to the New York Islanders in exchange for Atu Ratu, Anthony Beauvillier, and a first round pick that is top 12 protected. So there's a couple things you want to look at here, and let's start off with the Islanders side of things. Anthony Beauvillier has one more year left at a 4.15 cap hit. The thing is, Anthony Beauvillier hasn't done much this season. He hasn't done much last season. And besides that game 6 goal, he's just been a bunch of untapped potential. Now he's 25, so there's something for Vancouver to maybe pull out here, but Islanders fans cannot be mad about Anthony Beauvillier going the other way. First of all, if you want to talk about him shaking up the cage or something like that or upsetting the chemistry, listen, you can upset chemistry when your team isn't in a playoff spot when they're supposed to be winning. You got to shake the cage. You got to make moves. Okay, so that doesn't really matter. 2, Anthony Beauvillier is so streaky and hasn't really accomplished all that much besides his postseason success on the Long Island, right? So if he does develop in Vancouver, he wasn't going to develop here, and a change of scenery might be beneficial for him. Then on to number 3, you're getting a way better, more productive guy who will be a consistent line mate with Barzell. I know we all kind of thought that Barzell and Beauvillier would be a pairing, but we've seen that that's just not going to work, and we're getting such a more elite player. Then on to Atu Ratu, who is a very coveted prospect, and he fell into the second round in the draft when he was potentially a top 10 talent. There's a couple things we want to look to here. First, he fell to us in the pick. We picked him with a second. We didn't pick him with the top 10 overall pick. This is basically asset management. If you really look at it, and we're looking at it from Lou's picks, Lou gave up a first, a second, and Anthony Beauvillier. That's good asset management, okay? He was able to turn a second and a first, and Anthony Beauvillier, and I guess we'll just define him as a streaky player, into a all-star and a potential big piece of the core if we can extend them. Aturatu is going to be good at the NHL, I think. But the thing is, we all thought Jared Kalnick would be elite in the MLB when we got Edwin Diaz back, right? And we all thought that was an awful trade. And now Edwin Diaz is the player of the year, the reliever of the year, and Jared Kalnick still isn't totally sniffing the show. So I would rather have something in the hand than 2 chickens in the bush, or whatever the expression really is. Just know that you're getting something concrete here that can push you towards winning. And as for Atu Ratu, we just don't know. I mean, he's 19, so there's a lot of time for him to break out, but his breakout could happen 6 years. It could happen 2 years. It could happen 3 years. It could happen 4 years. And Lou Lamoriello is an older GM. He's probably going to retire soon, and he wants to win now. That's the long and short of it. That's what we knew going into this deadline. And so, to me, I'm okay with it. Listen, the Islanders have not shown us in the past that they can develop guys. Look at Anthony Beauvillier. Even look at Matt Barzell. Okay, I mean, he won the Calder, but he hasn't been as much of a weapon since. One thing I want you to look at, Matt Barzell's elite, and he's shown he can play with a weapon. We'll get into that later, but yeah, we'll get into that later. But Atu Ratu, I honestly don't know how much I trust the Islanders developing. Now, Atu Ratu is really good in the World Juniors, and so I feel like he did prove he's not going to slip there. But in so far in the games in the NHL, he hasn't been out of this world yet, right? So I still think he's going to take steps. He's 19, but that works 2 ways, okay? He's 19. He's going to develop, but also on the flip side, who knows when? You know, there's a large timetable in there. When you're not a first-round pick in the NHL, and even when you're not a top 10, it might take you a couple years to get going. And especially if you're a guy that slipped, it might take you a couple more, you know? So I think the Islanders see this as a way to get a guy now, because they are a team that could turn into a win now team. I think that getting a piece there would be big. And then onto that first round pick, you got to look at the protection here, right? 16 teams make the playoffs, 16 don't. The Islanders are kind of in a perfect spot with this top 12 protection. First of all, I know that it slides to next year, but the thing that you want to look at here is if they can extend Bo Horvat, they can easily get a good run going next year. Second, I just want you to look at the fact that when you get eliminated from the playoffs, when you're clearly not going to be one of those top 16 teams, hopefully there's some leeway in there. Hopefully there's a couple games where you can bring yourself down as far as possible and maybe you can get in top 12. If the Islanders don't get in there and they're not showing themselves to be good, well, they can fall 4 spots. It's not that hard to do. And third, I really don't know that the Islanders are going to have to worry about this first round pick. I think they actually will be a really good team. We've seen the Penguins slip recently, we've seen the Caps slip recently, and they're both really old. They're not going to be able to play as long as they usually can. And the Islanders are adding an absolute weapon to their team. He's one of the best guys, probably the best guy that will be traded at the NHL deadline this year. That's massive. Then let's look at the Islanders side of the deal. What are you getting? You're getting Bo Horvat. That's the long and short of it. Bo Horvat has a real chance to get 50 goals this year, and that's what he's on pace to do. In fact, this is a little bit out there, but there's a chance that if we got a hot Matt Barzal, he could maybe even go as far as 60. Now, what are we getting with Bo Horvat? Well, let's just look at Matt Barzal when he was younger and playing with Tavares on the Calder team that he won it. He had 85 points. It was a career high. He put up plenty of assists and a career high in goals. He was so good. And he's putting up numbers that are similar to that year this year, but he still is doing it without a weapon. I mean, Wally has been out for so long and we see him being cold. Now imagine this line. Matt Barzal, Horvat, and Wahlstrom. Wahlstrom is going to be an RFA. Horvat is going to be a UFA. The Islanders got to get this deal done. If they don't, deal was awful. Awful landslide Canucks if they don't get it done. There's rumors that a deal could look like an 8x8. I would even go an 8x9, but preferably an 8x8, 8x7. And, if you're getting him for that, that's cheaper than Barzy. I think the thing also comes down to what guys are you going to move out, There's a lot to this deal that I think fans have to focus on. If we can extend Horvat elite deal, and you got to realize that because what are you getting with Horvat? You're getting a piece to the core. You're getting an all-star, an elite two-way forward, one of the best in the game. He's scoring at a great pace. He wins faceoffs. He's good at defense and getting back. He's a good penalty kill. He's really good on the power play, which, we suck at that. And that's one of the reasons that we lost and couldn't get over the hump. The Islanders got a piece that they've been lacking for so long to get over the hump. And from that team, what have they lost? Jordan Eberle and Anthony Beauvillier. Now, those are two really, really good players. But again, we got Bo Horvat as an addition. He's so good. I don't think you guys quite realize how good this guy is and what he's going to do. He's going to make other players better, right? So if we can sling Matt Barzal onto one of the winger positions and we have Bo Horvat at center. Matt Barzal was born to be a winger. He doesn't really win faceoffs, and he is a defensive liability at moments. Bo Horvat, two-way forward, puts the puck in the net and gets back and makes nice defensive plays. The center usually slips in around the high slot. Obviously, he's going to be more versatile playing with Barzal and having fast pace. They're going to be able to move around and make nice plays. But being in that center of the zone, he's going to be able to score goals, and that's usually where you want your guys to play. I'm just going off of generally what you're supposed to do in Pee Wee and where the center is supposed to play. I know it's more advanced at the NHL, but it's still the same basic functions, right? Matt Barzal is going to have less of a leash, which I think is important. Matt Barzal is an explosive player at the NHL. He shouldn't be focused as much to back checking. Of course, he still should, but here's the thing. If he's reducing that role of back checking, he's allowed to be more explosive. That's more breakaways. That's more goals for Matt Barzal. Matt Barzal makes some beautiful breakaway goals. He's going to get more of that. And now he's got a guy that when he breaks out, he doesn't have to sit or dump the puck in because no one else is coming. He's got Bo Horvat coming in with him too, which is a big thing to add, right? Just note that nobody is at the speed of Matt Barzal on this team. Nobody. Bo might have been, but he can't bury it. We got someone who's at his speed, who can get back, and he can bury the biscuit when Matt Barzal gives it to him and just makes the Islanders more threatening. Why is Matt Barzal getting neutralized in the second half? You know why? Because it's the Islanders' only option. He's the only guy that can score on this team. He's the only star that can put that there. Bo Horvat adds a weapon. And you can see this in football too. There's another analogy that you can make. If you have two star wide receivers, well, then the defense has to focus on two star wide receivers. They can't lock up one because they know that there's another one right there, right? Look at the Bengals, for example. I know they lost this weekend, but when you lock up Jamar Chase, you still have T. Higgins. You still have Boyd. I'm not going to say Boyd is really as much of a star. I mean, I don't know as much, but T. Higgins is a really good player. So, you get more options and you get more ability to score, and you make it harder for the defense. The defense can't throw 3 guys at Matt Barzal now because Bo Horvat's open in front. You see what I'm saying? More options. Matt Barzal is freeing up the leash both from his own coach and in its offensive end. That's great. Onto the power play. Our power play sucks. Like, I don't think anyone will ever tell you that the Islanders' power play has been good for years. And why? Because we only have Matt Barzal. Matt Barzal, Horvat. I don't quite know who else you throw on that line because you probably want to spread it out. You probably want Brock on the second unit, but I would assume if Dobson comes back after this break, which I think he will, he could be on that unit as the 1D man, and then maybe you throw Wally in there eventually when he comes back. And this team just got so much deeper. Now, I know that some people are also saying, and one response to it is, how do we know that he won't play center? Lane Lambert should lose his job if he doesn't play Horvat and Barzal together. I'm sorry. And that is because we don't need depth scoring. Like, we have Brock Nelson on that second line. We've got a gritty third line, and we've got a gritty fourth line that can swing the momentum. And then we've got 2 up front lines that can score goals. I like that format. Now, Lane Lambert is the one question mark for this team making an incredible run. He is, because to me, they have one of the best decors in the league that just hasn't played like an elite decor. Now, maybe that's because Scotty isn't quite playing at the same level he has in years before. And I think for the Islanders, he's a guy that you probably move on from at the deadline. This is a deep draft, and you can build an extended window, even with trading that first and Ratu by trading off some of the guys that are going to become UFAs and might not be a big part of the team, I would say. And, getting rid of Mayfield, getting more young guys their start. Samuel Bolduc's a guy who showed a lot of potential. I would like to see him step up in a bigger role this year, and I really like what he's been able to show us so far. For me, the Islanders took a massive step, and I think they're really scary now. Like, I know people don't believe it, and I know people say their playoff odds are 19%, and I know people say that there's other problems with this team, and I know people say they still can't score. He's unproven. Listen, if Bo Horvat doesn't score, yeah, obviously the deal sucks if he doesn't perform. That's an important flaw to it if he doesn't perform, but that's an if, right? So if you're going to win an argument on an if, chances are you didn't win the argument if you have to pull in hypotheticals like that. So to me, Bo Horvat's going to bring so much to this team. And just listen to the lines, right? A lot of these guys, first of all, let's just go back to that. A lot of these guys were injured before they came back. I mean, Palmieri is back, and I know that I'm not a big fan of Palmieri either. I don't think he's a star, but he's still good depth scoring. Pelech is back. He's one of the best defensemen in the league. He needs to get his legs under him, and I feel like he's done that recently. Ilya Sorokin is our starting goaltender. He's been able to bring us into this race, and we've lost so many close games, and now we have a guy that can actually bury the puck. That's a crucial thing. We're getting offense in a team that we keep losing these close edge-outs because we just don't have enough of it. To me, the Islanders are going to be really scary. And I know that some people can call me biased. Some people can hate on me. That's fine. Listen, I thought they were going to be scared at the beginning of the year, probably. I thought they'd at least bounce back a little bit more, I thought they would bounce back, assuming they got someone in there at the deadline. Listen, my one thing has always been for this team, you need to score. And I've been saying it for longer than I've had this podcast running, and this brand has even been able to exist. And Lou Lamoriello did that. Whether you hate the move, whether it was an overpay, here's my thing. I bet you that all of these Islanders fans complained about Lou Lamoriello for not having a scorer even up to this year. Even up to this year. That's probably the reason that they thought we needed to go into a retool. You got your scorer. Now, to me, this will also prove another thing. Matt Barzal doesn't perform. He is not as elite as we thought he would have been. I'm just going to say that too. That's true. But I think he will. I think things are going to work out for us. I think it depends on Wally's timetable. I hope he comes back soon. I mean, Barzal and Wally and Horvat as that first line is so good. That third line of Holmstrom and of Pajot and Parisi is a great. Like, think about the center depth here. Horvat improves gradually, just so much from Barzal as a center. Nelly, Pajot, Cizikas. Those 4 centers, it's really going to be tough for teams to beat us in the faceoff dot. It just is. And we got to lock in Horvat. That's a big thing. But love that first line. Second line is a little bit tougher to complex, but I'd assume Palmieri's on it. And as for the other winger, I just don't know as much because Beau is always a consistent starter. I guess Bailey, but I don't really love that. I would like to bench him and maybe call up like Dufour, give him more of a shot. But maybe that fourth line is Fashing and Martin and Casey, and if Clutter comes back, maybe you sit Marty a little bit too and switch that up. But theoretically, these are really good lines. I mean, that bottom six is good grinding guys. They can win faceoffs, they can swing momentum, and occasionally they're going to score. That's what you need for a bottom six playoff team. Grinding the other team out, winning faceoffs, playing good hockey, good defensive hockey. Hey, you know what? Those lines are not trying to score goals. They're not. They're trying to win shifts. They're trying to keep the score at 0 and swing the momentum. Your top six lines are trying to cash in on the momentum and score goals. That's just how these championship teams work. And I think the Islanders just went out there and they said, listen, we are going to make this team elite. And to me, having Anders Lee, completely forgot about him, 40 goal scorer, him, Nelly, and Palmieri on that line too. Now, I know Lee isn't anymore, but he's still around 30. Nelly is an all-star. He's around a 30 to 40 goal scorer. Palmieri was an all-star in his history, and he's been pretty good since his return. That's a good second line of scoring and shutting it down and a lot of big bodies. I like that. First line of Barzal, Horvat, and Wally should be really good. Should be really fun to watch. I'm just telling you guys, like, don't blow up about this deal already, okay? Because I could be wrong too. Listen, at the end of the day, whatever I say could be absolute hoopla if Bo Horvat leaves or he does nothing on the island. Like, this could be like a Thomas Vanek deal. I just don't think it will be. I think we all got to calm down and say, for right now, this deal might not burn us for a while. And if it does, you also want to look to the fact that Ratu's going to get way more playing time and way more better forwards. The way the Islanders were developing Ratu was not the way you should be doing it. They were playing him with Matt Martin and Josh Bailey. I'm sorry, that doesn't develop guys. And he probably was going to take even longer to be a star with the New York Islanders. I think this works out for the players and for the teams. For the Vancouver Canucks, they trade a guy who they knew was walking. They were in a really bad position because of the whole thing that happened with the coach. He definitely wasn't coming back, and they got good young assets. They're going to take a chance on Beau, and we'll see how he does with the change of scenery. This is Beau's test to kind of see, can you make it in this league? And they get a young prospect who could be a part of their core later on. They also get a first in a deep draft. For the Islanders, you got that score. You got a center. You got a consistent playing partner for Matt Barzal, who's going to play at an elite level with him. And back to the Canucks, you have two guys that need to either develop or go through a test, and there's no better place to develop or go through a test with a rebuilding team where you're going to get a lion's share of the playing time, where you're going to play with some good players. They do have some good players out there for Beau and Ratu to play with that I think Ratu will play with because they're not trying to win, they're trying to develop him. For Beau, they're giving him a test, so they're going to put him with some weapons to see what he can do. And yeah, that's about all I have to say. Listen, just calm a little bit. Not everything Lamoriello does is evil and destroying the team. That's all I'm saying. You don't just have to always think it that way. Just let's all take a chill pill. Let's not hate this move. Let's welcome Bo Horvat. And let's hope that he gets extended and that we succeed. At the end of the day, whatever we say doesn't matter because we're not making the decisions. We're just fans of the team. And even if you don't like it, at some point, you're going to have to root for this team again. And it's going to be a lot easier to root for it with Bo Horvat. And maybe even you get lucky and this team does something magical. And to be quite honest, I wouldn't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. Fingers crossed. I'm crossing them now. If something happens, it's not on me. But just keep the faith. I mean, if you are a New York sports fan, unless you're a fan of the Yankees or I guess the Giants, you can count in because they had some miracle runs in there. But that's all we have, man. Like the Jets, the Mets, the Giants, even the Islanders. They're just teams that pop out and they go on some magical runs. And yeah, sometimes it really sucks to be a fan of them. I mean, the Giants, 2007, 2011, the Jets. I mean, I'm sorry. Oh, you guys have us hope. There's not that many miracle runs to point to. But the Mets, 2015. This year was really fun, even though it failed in the long run. 1986, 1969 for the Islanders. Those 2 years, we had no business being there. And I feel like we finally do. And it's down to that coaching. So keep the faith. You got nothing else. You're not going to change what happened. Just root for your team. That's all you can do at the end of the day. So Thank you all for watching. If you made it to this point, check out our newest podcast, Fresh Look. It doesn't talk about Bo Horvat, but it is still a good look into what's going on with the Giants and what's going on around the NHL and some MLB moves and just kind of keeping up a little bit there. We should have a podcast coming out this weekend where we're going to interview the leader of the Blue and Orange Army. And also, I'll be recording on Saturday with Drive for Five. So that'll be a fun thing to do. We'll have 2 interviews coming. I'm going to try and get someone else too, but I would say there's slim to none chance considering I asked him twice. He said once yes, and the next time he kind of yelled at me. So, yeah. Tell all your friends. Bo Horvat is a New York Islander, and sometimes you just got to see it to believe it, and I get it, but you just got to hope for the magic. Bye, everyone.